I wanted to share that I'm going through a little detox. I'm doing a little bit of fasting right now, and it's always fun to do this. Actually, when I first started doing it, it was kind of like really new to me, but I got into it. Well, anyways, I'm going through it right now, and it's always interesting to do it because the fasting spans multi dimensions. It's not just, oh, you're physically doing it and whatever. And this is not things that you have to do or like it stuff like that. It's not like a mandatory thing or like it's going to make you better or something. It's just a choice. And it's something that I choose to do every now and again. And it's always interesting for me because on the real side, the experiences take on a flavor of releasing old agreements and these little tap lines and really becoming more aware. It's so interesting that when I'm fasting, my awareness opens up more so. Like, for example, this actually trails into the second experience where I was sitting down doing my working, and all of a sudden I had sort of just started staring off. I really wasn't thinking about anything. I was kind of just being, and I didn't realize that I was staring outside of the window, which is kind of like up the stairs from, and I can see it from where I'm sitting. And I was kind of just staring out the window, but not necessarily consciously, not really looking at anything. Well, all of a sudden, I started to get this very strong vibration in my pineal gland or like in my forehead area. And I noticed when I finally kind of like started paying attention to what was taking place there, I had sort of like blinked and adjusted my eyes, and I noticed that there was this tiny UFO, probably like a flying saucer, probably the size of like a frisbee. It was floating right at the window, and it was hovering there, staring at me. Whoever was in it, these little aliens or whoever, but it was hovering right there, and it was watching me. And that's why I had sort of like seemingly randomly looked at out the window, even though it was almost like a unconscious thing, or like really the real awareness sort of pushing my head that way. So I thought that was kind of fun. um, like, I'll give you an example of some of the agreements that have been being released through this fasting, and that is, it kind of started yesterday, almost 2 days ago, where I got an idea, really a hint of some of the things taking place on the real side, between some of the family members and certain things taking place like that. Um, and essentially, it just was along the lines of some emotional agreements, actually, to where it was going to be. It actually involved the father and I getting into a physical altercation, and it was to be a physical event. And I remember I was when we ended up fighting and whatever, or we got into it. I remember I'd actually reached out to you, Duane, and I said, "Well, I said, me and him got into it. I'm just gonna come down to Mexico. It's just better that I just get out of here, altogether." And it was kind of interesting because I could see that it really prompted me to take that little leap. Even though it seems like a traumatic event and whatever, it actually was sort of like pushing me, giving me that little kind of kick in the rear, almost in a literal sense. And anyways, with that, I remember I came to this little crossroads. When I came to this little crossroads, Val was giving me instructions on how to get to the house. He was telling me how to get to the house. And as he was giving me the instructions, as I'm standing at this crossroad, there was this stone archway. And on the top of the archway was the instructions carved into stone. But I noticed that not all of the instructions were carved into stone. Like, as Val was sharing the instructions on how to get to the house, I was reading along, when at a certain point it stopped. And I knew that standing at this crossroads was very, of course, not only, you might say, symbolic, but I could perceive the agitation of choosing, having to decide, really having to have the intent to make a decision. And it's like that saying, nothing's set in stone. It's not written in stone. Um, because again, it has to be like a choice. I have to decide to do something or to take a little risk. So that was the little experiences that I'm having right now.
Yeah, well, we get very settled in and we don't realize it, and life is good, etc., where we're at. And yeah, I always wanted to get on with things and looking for the opportunity to do that. And when we came to Mexico here, I was waiting for the bond money, but when we came to Mexico here, the kids wanted to come. And so I got agreement from everybody, and I thought, okay, because I need help too. And this would be the first spot. I'd already decided that a long time ago. And then eventually Africa, if possible, because of what's happening in the world. But yeah, you look at your age and how long you've been there, etc. It's overdue. And the same with Ava. I could see she was very settled in there, and finally she decided. And you get a new life from that. And this is where Claudia and Sandy, they wouldn't do it. And so it was even shown to them that they wouldn't take the risk to have a new life. They wanted to stay in their old routines, their old comfortable routines. And once you do, you become more creative, and you have a new view. You're in a new place, and it's all new for you. And when I was young, I used to, when I first started construction, whatever, I used to move all over the place. Every 6 months I'd move. I wouldn't settle in because I wanted a new place, new apartment in Huntington Beach and different places. Went to Hawaii. I drove to Acapulco, lived down there for a while, etc. Driven to Cabo, etc., and did all these things. And yeah, it's time. And yeah, you decide, but you'll see that once you leave, how settled in you were. Because people don't see it. They don't see themselves. They're just comfortable, and they just think, well, everything's fine. My life's going fine. It's not about that. It's not about that at all. And so, yeah, we have a big adventure here to take on, and there's a lot to do. And so getting people to decide to step up and take part, yeah, that's toughie, but you can't tell them what to do. They really have to decide, because that free will is important. But when you see the opportunity, like anything, just like me, the boys give me opportunities. And, they even tested me many times to where I just said, they said, no, you're not doing that. Or what I said, I'm doing it. That's it. And so that's just how it is. And it's all okay. Yeah, so yeah, there's your opportunity there, and many things happen in the meantime. And again, the personal self, you're seeing it very well, but there's so much more to see it, just like you described yesterday and the different times where you're facing this personal self and what it does. Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I see mine too. It's a stinker. It has all these little idiosyncrasies in it all over the place. But they still have the old programming in them. And see, that's still set there, and they have to deal with that too. And the old fears and the old conditionings and whatever. But when you learn to let everything go and just see how life is, like the sun shining, the sincerity of it, and then go for it. Because again, everything that we've created is just that. There's none of this here. You're just existing. All of us are existing in some kind of agreement that looks good and comfortable. And yes, we do things here, but is that your real intent? Is that it? Just to be okay and self-satisfied and doing these little things, whatever, etc. So, yeah. So there you go. There's the hints again. And you decide. You're more than qualified, and you have backup. You have your job. You have things like that. So, and it takes a while. And for Val and I and others and Ava to get down here, we worked our whole life to set this all up for everyone. But not everyone's paying attention because they're so comfortable in their little space, or they have some justification, like, oh, I got to go to a funeral or a wedding, or my daughter's having a birthday. Well, that's all cute. Yeah, have fun. So, yeah, life's a lot bigger and it's a lot better. Yeah, you are the decider. Yeah, there you go, Jeremy. Thank you.